Why do you think zombies have remained sort of popular within sort of, American culture, society?
Well, I don't know about like American culture really, but I know like it probably has a lot to do with like disease and plagues and all that.
Yeah, particularly these days, that's one of the things that zombies have very much evolved to represent. I think most people sort of look at it as stemming from the first 28 Days Later movie, is where you sort of have the idea of the zombie as a symbol of the pandemic and how disease spreads very quickly. And that's one of the more recent sort of iterations of zombies and what they mean, which is another reason why I find zombies fascinating, is that what zombies represent has evolved over time. It's proven to be a very flexible metaphor for representing in any number of fears, either within American culture or more generally. And fears of disease, as you mentioned, Owen, is definitely one that, particularly in the 21st century with 28 Days Later and that entire franchise has very much tapped into. But we can go even further back than that. Zombies from their origin have always had sort of a kind of metaphorical aspect to them. They originate in Haiti, associated with Haitian voodoo, but not in the way that people normally think. They originally, if in Haiti, zombies were a figure of someone being possessed and being controlled by someone else. And so they actually originate within the slave population as a way in which they represented how they were being controlled by the slave owners and thus more broadly by capitalism. And so even in those early days, it was very much more of a metaphor to kind of express their sort of position within society. And then, sort of on the flip side of that is how, the way in which that the zombies become the ways in which the disease gets spread. One zombie bites another person and that person becomes a zombie. That then turns the spread of the, in this case, plague, into the fault of the victims of it. That, the victims of the slaves themselves become the reason why there are more slaves rather than, say, the slave owners or capitalism sort of making them into that. And so it's one of the things that's really interesting about where sort of zombies originate, is that they've always sort of had this representational quality to them, that they were an expression of how the slaves were being controlled and dominated, because they were more a symbol of being controlled and dominated than we really think of them as today. Today we think of them more, as you said, Owen, as kind of a disease and sort of things like that.